Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. Everybody who's watching us on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. Of course, I am Joe Gaither. You can follow me at Joe Gaither6 on all the social media accounts. Send me a like, a comment, question, query. Most importantly, the complaints right there at all the social media sites right there. Join us on our other BamaCentral Broadcasting Network podcast, Blue Collar Unplugged. We are 18 days away from Alabama tipping off, so Blue Collar Unplugged with Jacob Pickle, Matthew Gibson, and Blake Byler will be cranking up full time here pretty soon. We had a lot of fun on Wednesday talking to the who's who in SEC Media Basketball edition up in Birmingham, and then we were also up there on Thursday talking to Christy Curry, Loyal McQueen, and Sarah Ashley Barker. So we appreciate everybody who gave us a little bit of time this week. If you missed any of those episodes, you can check them out right there on all the platforms I just mentioned. But we are back to talking football. Yesterday, we talked to Dan Harrelson of VolsWire.com, and he was very, very gracious with his time. Right after coming on the road, he drove from Knoxville to Birmingham, so he just landed and gave me 30 minutes of his time. So that was great yesterday as well. So we are on to the third Saturday in October. It's Football Friday. What do we do every Friday on BamaCentral.com? It's Football Friday. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be joined by all of our BamaCentral friends, and we're going to talk about Alabama and Tennessee, the third Saturday in October. Alabama losing last year. The streak was broken, but now Tennessee tries to start their own streak. You cannot have a winning streak until you win 2 games. So we'll see what Josh Heupel and Joe Milton and them boys bring to Tuscaloosa. More importantly, the Tennessee defense. How Alabama's offensive line can work with the work against the Tennessee defense. Coach Saban very vocal this week about Alabama's performance last week against Arkansas. So let's get the conversation rolling. Let's have a great day with our friends Katie Wyndham and Wyatt Fulton. We will find our friend Chris Walsh fairly soon. Yeah, let's do it like that. We'll find Chris Walsh fairly soon. I think Austin Hannon said he's calling out for the day. He's gotten too many picks correct, so he wants to give everybody else a chance to shine. So without further ado, Katie Wyndham, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Joe. I did, when you said, what do we do every Friday? I realized it seems like my Wi-Fi is probably going to have issues again. So everyone just be prepared for me to freeze at some point and have to inevitably switch to my hotspot. So
it is A-okay. We appreciate you hanging out with us anyways. And Wyatt Fulton joins us. We haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. How are you, man? How's life been?
Life's going good. Everything's going good. I had to take a long step back and reevaluate everything after I just completely whiffed on the Texas pick.
Well, we're gonna hopefully you get the next UT pick correct as Tennessee comes to town. Obviously, big game for Alabama. You got a couple factors playing in. One, obviously, you got to keep your lead in the SEC West. 2, you've got to hopefully, get revenge. And you can read Will Miller's revenge piece right there on BamaCentral.com. You got caught up with Paul Feinbaum, Bill Battle, and several other Baron Huber, Knoxville native Baron Huber, about the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry. So you can read that right there on the cover at BamaCentral.com to talk about revenge. And then really, you got kind of the lackluster performance last week at play. So 3 kind of real interesting aspects at play for Alabama this weekend. Katie Wyndham, how has your week gone as you've thought about this game? Everybody, kind of wakes up on Sunday feeling some kind of way, and now that we're here on Friday, the feelings or thoughts may have changed. How have you felt about this weekend's matchup with Tennessee?
I just feel like the more the week goes on, it's kind of odd the way our football coverage goes, and that the week is so front loaded as far as like us talking to the players and Saban, and then my off day is Wednesday, so I'm not there with Saban on Wednesday. But like I feel like things do change throughout the week, and this Alabama team I just can't figure out. We see them at A&M win a tough game on the I think the one thing we've seen is the resiliency to win, which is what Saban has said, which that, at the end of the day, he talked last week, which is what I wrote about you got to stop just winning the games but beating the opponents. At the end of the day, as long as you win all the games, you're going to be in a good position, even though we've kind of looked at some interesting scenarios this week of what could happen at the end of the year if there's a bunch of undefeated, conference champions. But I don't know. I haven't watched Tennessee a ton this year. I watched a little bit of the end of their game last week against A&M when I got home from Bryant-Denny. They were, you know, I mean, they deserved to win that game, but they were also fortunate in a sense to win it at home with some of the turnovers that A&M had, which credit to them for forcing those turnovers. But this is a Tennessee offense that struggled a little bit, and this Alabama defense is really good. So it's going to come down to, I think, what it's come down to all year is, can the Alabama offense do enough? Because I think the defense is going to do enough to be able to win you this game and a bunch of the games moving forward.
Wyatt Fulton, same feeling. What have been your thoughts, and how has it changed throughout the week?
I've actually seen a lot of people shift their focus, saying how, Tennessee's really struggled on the road dating back to last season and things like that. And so with this being in Bryant-Denny, I think Alabama's given a much better chance. Tennessee, like I said, Tennessee struggled on the road. Georgia, South Carolina last season, at Florida this year, all were big issues on the road and things like that. And really and truly, it's going to come down to Alabama's offense. Can they make the plays when they need to make them?
100%. And Tennessee, this will be their first real road game since the Florida game, and they've only really gone out of Neyland Stadium that one time against Florida and put on kind of a putrid performance in a place where a lot of Tennessee fans were feeling like this was their year to win down in the swamp. Kind of came out and fell flat on their face at Florida. And I guess if you guys have listened to the show a whole lot, I don't have a very high opinion of Florida. So it's going to be interesting this weekend. The real question, I guess, the next major question, and Wyatt, you'll go first here, and then Katie will talk about it after that, is the offensive line. The Alabama offensive line has been, has been up and down. I mean, you watch their performance against A&M. Yes, you gave up 5 sacks, but you also handled their pressure in a lot of other places and allowed Jalen Milroe to find Jermaine Burton in certain areas. Okay, so last week, Alabama gets the running game going a good bit against Arkansas, but you also gave up 5 sacks again and 3.5 to Landon Jackson, defensive end, right off the edge around Caden Proctor and Elijah Pritchett. So the focus has been on the left tackle, but the whole offensive line has shifted and shuffled all year long. You've seen Darian Dalcourt in the starting lineup. You've seen TJ Ferguson get a lot of reps. Now he's been a little injured. Coach saying that he's a little bit more closer to 100%. Jaden Roberts jumping into the starting lineup. You've seen lots of combinations on the offensive line, and there have been moments where the offensive line has looked like you want it to look. You only gave up 2 sacks against Middle Tennessee. Sure, it's Middle Tennessee, but you played pretty well in certain spots, but also pretty poorly in other spots. Coach Saban this week, Wyatt, saying that the offensive line issues haven't necessarily been a physical issue, but have been a communication issue. He talked about one of the sacks that Elijah Pritchett gave up to the inside, saying, you had help. Caden Proctor gave up to the outside, saying, if you know you have help to the inside, why get beat to the outside? You got to kind of play to your schemes a little bit. So Wyatt, what's going to be, look, we're 8 weeks in now. What's the thought process on the offensive line? When are we going to see some consistency? And what's it going to take to see a good 60-minute performance on both passing and running the football out of the offensive line?
I think it's a lot. Yeah, obviously, Caden Proctor has struggled early this season and things like that. And so really and truly, teams are like, we've played enough games at this point that teams are seeing this on film. Teams will watch the last, 4 or 5 games. Well, they've seen Caden Proctor consistently struggle the last 4 or 5 games. So they're going to keep sending extra pressure at him, send blitzes his way, which is making him have to process a little bit faster, make him have to realize, okay, I need to recognize where my help is, and I need to be able to identify who's coming on a blitz and things like that. So I think being able to help him, like Coach Saban had said, with Tyler Booker being on that left guard spot, I think that's very helpful. I also think maybe adding a chip or a block, or, keeping the running back in to block, or maybe adding a tight end over there. I know we have several tight ends that are very good blockers and things like that. So just kind of adding some help to Caden Proctor. And of course, the entire offensive line as a whole has really struggled this season. So I don't know if necessarily they may need to, break the huddle faster or get to the line of scrimmage. I don't know if obviously Texas A&M, a stadium like that can really mess with your communication and things like that. So it gets a little bit tougher to kind of decide, okay, this blitz is coming from here and I need to help somebody out. So, but just maybe break the huddle a little bit quicker, or, I'm no offensive line expert, obviously. So, take it with a grain of salt, what I'm saying.
Well, the next game that any of us coach will be our first. Actually, no, Katie coached an 8A game. Yeah, Katie coached an 8A game. So she's got a little more experience than the rest of us. Katie, what's the confidence level? We've heard many ideas of how to fix it, and Wyatt threw out a bunch of them. But what's the confidence level that it's going to be improved this weekend now that we're 8 weeks in?
I mean, mine is not super high that things are going to change 8 weeks in, even though there has been a huge, emphasis on it. I think we saw actually a super honest moment with Saban on Monday. Not to say that he's not always honest with us, but I'm not going to say that he always is. When he, I can't remember if it was Rodak asked him one of the other questions about the offensive line, when he said, you would like to hope that if you make the switch from right to left with J.C. Latham, that would solve all the problems. Then but then you don't know who you're going to put at right tackle. And he said, no one knows the answer to that. I think that was a little vulnerable, honest moment for Saban. They don't know. Obviously, they've been trying to figure out what the answer is at offensive line. They've tried 2 different guys at left tackle. You have put in a different guy, a guard with Jaden Roberts, and I think that's helped some the last couple weeks. But I also think maybe with all the questions this week about the left side of the offensive line to Saban and the players about the young guys on the left side, I think maybe I've had a little bit more of a human moment of realizing that, Proctor's a true freshman. Pritchett's a redshirt freshman, didn't really play last year because of his shoulder injury, I think, something he had in the offseason. He is a redshirt freshman, right? Because he did redshirt last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he had a pec or a shoulder issue last year, but he didn't really play.
Yeah. And, there's a reason that, freshmen don't start at left tackle very often. It's a tough position to be thrown into. And so I'm not – obviously, Proctor was very highly rated, was highly sought after. Alabama flipped him from Iowa, and Alabama obviously saw something in him that they had confidence to start him right away. But there is going to be, I think, a learning curve that we've seen through 7 games so far. And I don't know, and what Saban said on Monday too about there having, a commitment to try to have some stability along the line. But then you say that, and then you've been switching, who is left tackle through different series. And so I wonder if that has something to do with it. Because every week I think, I can't remember if it was before A&M. One week, me and Austin did for just a minute, will Alabama give up less sacks? And it's like, no. The answer is last week against Arkansas. In the back of the press box before the game started, me and Tony Sukalis and Chase Goodbread were sitting at the table. We were talking about the over-under of sacks for that game, total for both teams. I think we said it at either 7.5 or 8.5, and we almost hit that in the first half of the game. And so you just – because I think a lot of times this season, I think maybe – look, the sack number is ugly. The total number is ugly. Saban said, hell yeah, he's concerned about that on Monday. But I think a lot of times this season, you could put the sacks on Milroe too. Last week, it was a lot of just getting beat on the left side of the line, not a lot of time to throw. So I don't think if you look at the number total itself, it's a very ugly number, especially when I was kind of looking at some of the numbers across the country. And a team like Oregon, I think, has given up 4 sacks all year. And it's that's, 1/2 for Alabama. But when you look at sometimes it has been Milroe holding on to the ball for too long or trying to do something he maybe shouldn't or not throwing it away or whatever. But a lot of it has just been guys getting beat. Maybe because there has been so much focus on it, it will be something that they can fix this week. I think maybe if you see 3 sacks or less for Alabama giving up, I think that would be obviously an improvement. Especially, because Tennessee does have a good, defensive front that it's going to be a challenge. But because the thing is, we've seen Alabama give up these sacks to teams that, no disrespect, don't have as good of of defensive lines. We saw them give up 5 sacks at USF.
Yes.
So,
Florida, Mississippi State.
Yeah, I don't know if this week is necessarily a fair way to assess them because you are going against a talented pass rush against Tennessee, but it'll be a good test maybe to see where they are and if they have improved. And then the good thing is you have after this week the bye to maybe rest up, get recovered, and figure some more things out as you head into the important final month of the season.
Coach Saban last night on Hey Coach talking about the offensive line, and Wyatt, you must have been listening to Pee Wee's call because Coach Saban asked Pee Wee what he would do, and Pee Wee said, well, I'd chip him with the back and I'd chip him with the tight end, and that's exactly. And Coach said, well, those are good ideas. You had a caller last night say, Coach, why don't we flip the tackles and the guards? And Coach was like, I don't think that's going to work. He said it very respectfully, but it was kind of like, I don't think you know what you're talking about, buddy. But Coach alluded, Katie, to your point as well, that Caden Proctor and Elijah Pritchett are young players, and he basically talked about the effects of the transfer portal, where you've seen. He said, "Oh, we lost juniors and seniors, and we've replaced them with freshmen and redshirt freshmen." And he said sometimes that takes time. He said everybody wants to just think Alabama can replace a player and they're going to get an all-pro NFL level type player, but that's not always the case. And so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting this weekend. Tennessee, I think, is second in the nation in sacks, and I think a lot of people have made a lot about that number. But you went into the A&M game, and A&M was top 3, top 4 in the nation in sacks. And yes, they did get after Milroe for 4 or 5 sacks. And to your point again, Katie, that Milroe did hold on to a couple of balls, a couple of passing opportunities too long. But you're still able to have good pass protection throughout the game and find Jermaine Burton, find Isaiah Bond underneath a little bit. The running game wasn't really that good, but you're able to throw the ball over 300 yards, and the offense put up the 26 points. You would have had, 32? No, you would have had 30, right? You would have had 30 with the field goal block if it had not been called for a blindside block. So, yeah, Alabama's had pass protection issues and had offensive line issues, but they found ways, to the very first question, they found ways to basically get around that throughout the entire season. Tennessee's offense has struggled in similar fashions, not necessarily in the running game. Their running game has been very, very strong throughout the year. But Joe Milton, he's dealt with lots of accuracy issues. He threw an interception into the end zone against Texas A&M. Yes, they beat South Carolina, but threw a bad interception right over the middle of the field early in the game. I'm wondering if this Alabama, the defensive backs. Now, our man Austin Hannon reported that Malachi Moore was going to be questionable, and that seems like a small step back from last week's availability, and that's a little upsetting or concerning from the Alabama side. But if Malachi Moore is able to go, the defensive backfield, I think, might have an opportunity to really get after Joe Milton and make some turnovers. You turn Tennessee over, you can turn a close game into a comfortable game real early. So, Katie, talk about what we saw last week from the defensive backs without Malachi Moore, but also what he can add to this to the unit when coming back in. And then, obviously, Tennessee, they've lost Brew McCoy, unfortunate, terrible injury. They've got a good wide receiver in Squirrel White. But really, I favor the Alabama defensive backs in that matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I think me and Austin talked about it on Just a Minute this week. I think a big difference in that Arkansas game last week, not just the offense struggled in the second half, but the defense has done a good job this season of getting turnovers, but they weren't able to get one on Saturday. And I think that kind of hurt the team as a whole in the offense, because we've heard the players talk about how the offense and defense feed off of each other. And so when the defense wasn't able to get a turnover and maybe give the offense the ball in better field position or kind of swing the momentum of the game or get the crowd really into it, I think that hurt a little bit. But I can't remember if I heard this on the radio when I was driving back from Bryant-Denny, or if they said it on the broadcast of the Tennessee A&M game, that Joe Milton had one of the longest interception list streaks in the country, and then I think he has 4 in his 3 SEC games right now. So it is a big opportunity for the Alabama defense, especially the defensive backs, to get kind of back into that interception mode. I wrote about that 2 weeks ago, how they already have as many interceptions this season as they did all of last year, which that might have been a little bit of a writer's curse or jinx before the game on Saturday, since they didn't get one. But it is a big opportunity for them. I think last week maybe we saw in that second half against Arkansas a little bit of Malachi when he was out and other guys were playing in the different positions, some of the miscommunication and maybe guys not being in the right spot, or some guys getting beat that aren't There's a reason they haven't been the starters this year and are kind of the second string. So it will be big for that defense if he's back. But I also think if he doesn't go, you've now had 2 weeks of practice with guys in those positions. And so maybe guys will be a little bit more comfortable. But I agree, especially if, like you said, Tennessee's been a run-heavy team so far this year, that if the Alabama defensive front can stop that run and force Milton to throw, maybe force them into mistakes, if the outside backers can get the pressure they've been getting all year, force them to throw a little early, it would be huge for this game. And like you said, kind of change it from a close game to a more comfortable game if Alabama can force some turnovers on Milton.
What's your confidence level that Alabama's defense will be able to slow down and or stop the Tennessee running game?
I think Alabama. I'm very confident in Alabama's defense, and I think really and truly because of the lack of a passing game that Tennessee has had, I won't say the lack of the ability Joe Milton's shown to throw the ball, because he can throw some deep balls, but like with the rest of them. But I would say Alabama has a solid chance to leave their corners on islands. Both Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold have both shown that they can, really stand their own in the passing game and things like that, and just apply pressure, load up in the box, and try and slow down this really effective running game.
All right, so we're joined now by Christopher Walsh, the owner of BamaCentral.com, all of our bosses, and the man, the myth, the legend. We want to know, Chris, we've talked about just general thoughts on Tennessee. We've talked about Alabama's offensive line issues so far. We talked just a little bit on the Tennessee defense against Joe Milton just now. But I want to know about the significance of the third Saturday in October from you. I want to know about really, because obviously last year's game really ramped things up, but you went 16 years in a row of Alabama dominance. And now with Tennessee's win last year, the game this year, and then the pending schedule changes going forward, kind of a big picture question on the significance of the Tennessee rivalry, where it's been, where it is now, and maybe where it goes with it maybe not being on the schedule each and every day. Well, but first, I want to know, how are you doing today? How's your Friday going?
I'm fine. It's good to see you guys. I like how Wyatt has the Princess Leia headphones on, and so it's great to see Katie, our rock star lead writer. And I'm not slighting you, Joe. Always good to see you. So there we go. All right, now that I got everybody, it's funny because I was doing Lars Anderson's show yesterday, and Lars is a friend of ours, obviously, and he was asking me, it was like, when did the third Saturday, in October really when did you kind of realize that what a big deal it was? And just off the cuff, I said probably when Roman Harper knocked that ball loose on the guy running in the end zone. And I thought about it beforehand, or I thought about it a little bit last night. And I was like, you know what, that's not actually right. And I'm not going to give you a clear answer because I'm going to use it as a tease. I'm going to put it together on what I think the third Saturday really means, what this rivalry really means. We're going to post it Saturday morning, and it's one of those stories. If you know it, it's like, oh yeah, and if you don't know it, you're going to be like, you've got to be kidding me. And here's my hint. I'm going to be looking at your guys' faces because it's like it's going to be a dead giveaway. Bully Vandegraff. Wow, you guys don't know the story. Okay.
Yep, well, I'm going to have to read it on BamaCentral.com tomorrow. Bully Vandegraff. Keep going. I don't want
not giving it away. It's
perfect.
That good.
All right, perfect. So we're going to look for Bully Vandegraff story tomorrow on BamaCentral.com right there on the cover to get you ready for the ball game tomorrow. Coach Saban talked about it just a little bit yesterday. Jenny Dale kind of teased him into the very first question last night on Hey Coach, what's the revenge factor? All of the players this week have been calling it a personal game. And Coach Saban said, well, I don't know the revenge is a play, but Coach alluded to how meaningful the game was on both sides. And he said, okay, if you look back at, or if you look at both stadiums, Neyland Stadium and Bryant-Denny Stadium, he said both stadiums are named after the men who really ramped up and made this rivalry important. And so I'm really excited about it. Okay, being from right there on the Tennessee-Georgia line in Chattanooga, I have a lot of Tennessee fan friends that I grew up. So it's been important to me just to keep one over on them for a long time. Last year, a lot of my friends got it back, and so you've heard for 365 days, oh my gosh, the Tennessee's back, this, that, and the other. Katie, you were up there in Knoxville last year, and you told us the last time you told us about being down at A&M 2 years ago when A&M rushed the field. Were you on the field when everything went down in Knoxville? Obviously, pandemonium from the television screen from right here in my living room, and it looked like a crazy time. You saw Peyton Manning getting his cigar lit up by Tennessee friends. My friend sent me that photo today. He said, "I hope that Tennessee fan has that framed in his living room." I said, "I'm sure he does." So, what was it like down there on the field? First, Jahmyr Gibbs drops the ball. Oh, Jahmyr Gibbs! If he catches that ball, Alabama's probably kicking a 20-yard field goal to win. All right, so Jahmyr drops the ball. Tennessee goes the other way, 30, 40 yards in about 12 seconds, and then they kick an ugly field goal, but it doesn't matter, went through the uprights, and the pandemonium started. So with that being the scene set, what was it like down there?
Yeah, I was down there. We'd gone down there, me and Joey Blackwell, with a couple minutes to go, and I believe I was standing on the Alabama sideline, and I was about even with where Alabama was on their last drive. So I see Gibbs drop the ball. Then you have the two other incompletions, and then when Reichard misses the field goal, I tell Joey, I just had a feeling. I said we need to start heading towards the tunnel. And so we're standing on this side, and Alabama misses the kick going this way. So then Tennessee gets the ball, and they start driving this way. Me and Joey start going that way, closer and closer to the Alabama tunnel. We're basically, I think maybe, I'm trying to remember if we were underneath or like behind the field goal, or if we were still on the sideline when he kicked it through. I think we were behind it because basically I knew obviously if Tennessee wins, these fans are storming the field. So as soon as he kicks it through, we go into the tunnel a little bit. And it actually has ended up being one of our most popular videos on YouTube ever, of me capturing some of the footage of the Alabama players and coaches kind of going to the locker room, some Tennessee fans trying to head that way and getting clotheslined by Jay Batt. But so we were just kind of down there, and it was you could sense the frustration on the Alabama players. I mean, I could still see the Tennessee fans, but I was kind of staying out of the way because I didn't want to get, jumped on, mauled. Not that like anyone would intentionally do that to me. It's just when you're in the middle of thousands of people get trampled. So I was just trying to stay safe. And then because anytime there's a field storming, if you're not already down there, if you're not already close to the tunnel, it's extremely difficult to get to the post game because there's either security either not letting people on the field anymore. It's just tough to get through the crowds of people. So we were some of the very few people that even made it to the Saban post game. And so probably for the one and only time in my career, I got 2 post game questions for Nick Saban because there were like 3 reporters in there. And so I got the first question too, which is also pretty rare, and I asked him about why they threw it 3 straight times when you had the ball with 40 seconds left or less than a minute and the chance to win the game. But yeah, it was a crazy atmosphere. And I guess when we came back out from the post game, from talking to Saban and the players, because they brought in Bryce Young, they brought in Byron Young, they brought in Henry To'oTo'o, maybe someone else. I guess when we came back out, most of the fans had cleared off the field before we went up to the press box. But yeah, I kind of, after being at A&M the year before, I'd kind of learned to sense when a field storming is coming and knew where to go. Now, LSU, a couple weeks later, since that game was in overtime, I was not down on the field for that one. And so we did have to fight through the crowd to get to the post game, which was a whole ordeal.
All right, Wyatt. So I'm going to throw you a controversial question. Be ready. Here we go. Jermaine Burton gets in trouble. Gets a lot of social media interaction. Gets in trouble for shoving, hitting, pushing, getting or defending himself. Whatever your perspective is, he was making contact with a Tennessee fan, a female fan, which I don't really love that very much. But I also kind of feel like if you storm the field, you're taking your own well-being into your own hands. All right, so first part of the question is your reaction to Jermaine Burton, Coach Saban not really suspending him. And then secondly, you saw Jermaine Burton 2 weeks ago against A&M, put up a great game, and really was vocal, was pretty demonstrative throughout the game. He got himself an unsportsmanlike conduct. He also had some demonstrative moments against Arkansas last week. So what are we going to expect from Jermaine Burton this week with the backdrop of, oh my gosh, I was the kind of subject, the center of attention after the game for my antics. You can talk about field storming if you want to, please do. But really throw it back into context of this weekend. What can we expect out of Jermaine Burton this weekend against Tennessee?
Yeah, to kind of just open up real quick about your point about field storming and things like that. I've never been a part of a field storming. I've seen a field storming. I was in where was it? We lost is the big point there, and this field got stormed, obviously. And so I've seen the pandemonium. I can't imagine, you're a player, you have so many emotions are running high, and now you've got people that are just flying left and right and things like that. You have no idea who's about to step in your way. And really and truly, this is my opinion. Everybody's got opinions, so take it with a grain of salt. But my opinion is, if you step on the field, you might get caught lacking a little bit. You might get caught sleeping here for a second. And so, do I think Burton probably should have swung on her? Obviously not. No, but I mean, his emotions were high, and at that point, he was trying to get off the field safely. And so, should he have been suspended? Maybe. We don't know what his discipline was. He may have, faced discipline after practice or during practice or something like that. Maybe not, in a game situation. And with Texas A&M, I am, for one, I like when players talk. I like when players show their attitude and things like that on the field and around the field and things like that. So he's gotten one unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, I think, in his 2 years at Alabama with all the talking and stuff that he does.
Only one? That's breaking. That's news to me.
Fans wanted another Tony Brown, and now we're mad that we've got another Tony Brown. You can't have your cake and eat it too at this point. So, but I think you will see a good game from Burton. He's on another level right now when it comes to 50-50 passes and things like that right now. So I do think you see a big Jermaine Burton game here. If he gets going early, I'm not going to say, he's going for another 200 yards like he did against A&M, but I do think you see a score, and I do think you see a big Jermaine Burton game here.
Chris, build off that, because you've seen this year, Ole Miss fan jumping into the face of an LSU player on the after a field storming and called him some nasty names. But then last week Notre Dame fan runs up on Caleb Williams and says, "Show me your nails now, show me your fingernails now." And Caleb Williams is walking with a security guard who basically protected him in that moment. But what's your opinion of opposing fans rushing the field and really the dangerous situation that becomes?
It is dangerous. And I know I'm going to get kind of called the guy, get off my lawn kind of thing when I say this. They got to stop it. It's really, really dangerous. And the first time I was actually on a field when it was stormed was Arizona State. And you would probably sit there and go, why on earth are they storming the field? Arizona State. It's a big rivalry. Yeah. And so
what's up?
I was in Arizona when Arizona won and they stormed the field. I was at Arizona State when Arizona State won the field, stormed the field. And then, and this is really odd, I was there when the Arizona Cardinals clinched a playoff spot and the fans stormed the field. Swear it's true. Rise
up Red Sea.
They're scary. And when the kick six happened, I had an Auburn guy. He's running. He's not looking where he goes. Totally ran me over. I could have been seriously hurt. And I'm 6'4", but you get plowed into from behind by a guy running full steam. Yeah, it hurts. But like at the Arizona State game, I sat there and watched guys. I was in the tunnel, and the goalpost is right in front of the tunnel, and I'm watching these guys trying to climb it, and they're being total idiots. And one of them lands straight down on his head. I was like, I just saw somebody die, And fortunately, the guy ended up being, okay. But it's probably the least potential for damage is actually to the football players themselves, because they've got pads. They can put on a helmet if the fans are being moronic. But you got that many bodies squishing together. You never know what can happen. Anyway, so there's my get off my lawn speech. But they got to do something to stop this, curtail it. But that environment at Tennessee was absolutely unreal, and because Alabama had won, 15 games in a row? Mm-hmm. Those fans, the term I was using when the game was going on, I was like, these fans are foaming at the mouth.
Yes.
I mean, and look, we know college football fans are crazy. We know Alabama fans are crazy. We know Tennessee fans are crazy. It's a different kind of crazy. But you put them in a situation like that, holy cow, what an environment that was. So you tip your hat a little bit to Tennessee for pulling off the win. Josh Heupel, staff did it. They did what they had to do to win the game. But it's, you keep hearing the SEC talking about, we're trying to figure out ways to stop this. I don't know any way to do it except for you put 50 security guards, at every single, exit entrance and basically, do something like that. That's not going to work. It's not going to happen. So, what was the question?
I just wanted you to build off the field storming. That's all, and you did a perfect job. My thought to stop it, Chris, and my biggest idea to stop it is when Tennessee storms the field. All right, big win. Well, Alabama, obviously, they're coming back to Tuscaloosa this year already on the schedule. Well, if Tennessee storms the field last year, Alabama gets to host the next 2 games instead of you get the game that's already on the schedule, but the following year as well is back in Tuscaloosa as well. So you sacrifice a home gate, you sacrifice a city of an economic impact of a home weekend as well, and the fans have to come to Tuscaloosa 2 years in a row. That's
or maybe just somewhere down the line, but This is really kind of a unique thing for Alabama. Like I'll never forget when I was on the field, South Carolina game when Stephen Garcia pulled off the win, with Spurrier, and I'm standing next to Tony Barnhart, Mr. Football, Mr. College Football. I'm like, Tony, you ever been on a field that's been stormed? He said no. I was like, it's dangerous, watch out. And just as I said it, this fan comes running out of nowhere. The game's not even over yet.
Sure.
And 3 cops tackle him on the sideline right behind Tony. And Tony's like, what's going on, kind of thing. And sure enough, South Carolina pulled off the win and the fans stormed the field. And leaving South Carolina was interesting that night because every single fan, it's one of those places that where the parking area is nowhere near where the stadium is. And after a win like that, the people who are doing the shuttle service, they're out celebrating. So you had to walk all the way. Every single South Carolina fan made sure to stop every reporter they saw and scream at them. It's really fun.
Well, Katie, we're all in context of the third Saturday in October. Alabama is an 9.5 point favorite. We'll do picks here in just a little bit. We're about to be at 45. We'll start doing picks about 45. Okay, so what is our biggest thing that we haven't mentioned so far that you think are the keys to victory for Alabama, or storylines that people need to pay attention to, or anything that you think, okay, this is what I'm looking for in the Bryant-Denny Stadium press box on Saturday?
I think just from an Alabama perspective, will this be the game that they finally put it together? Saban said, or after Saban said the thing last week about not just winning the game, beating the opponent, I went around and asked all the players they brought out about that. And I think all of them said something along the lines of, we have to play a 60-minute game. So is this the game that they play 60 minutes?
Okay.
Like, you're 8 games into the season now. Is this a game that we see Alabama put together a complete performance on defense, offense? Are they able to have a balanced offensive attack where 3 weeks ago at Mississippi State, we saw Alabama run the ball. 2 weeks ago, we saw them pass the ball at A&M. Last week, we saw them have a successful first half, and then the second half was just like neither on offense. So is this the game that we see a more balanced performance from Alabama, a complete 60-minute performance where they either don't let off the gas, or because Saban was kind of asked about that a lot on McAfee yesterday about how do you play it with the lead, and or
3-point win, you lost the game.
Yeah, if any of us dared to say anything like that ever, it would not be good. But yeah, that's kind of the thing I'm looking for. And like always, kind of like that, what I hit on earlier is I think the turnover battle is going to be big in this one.
Wyatt Fulton, what's the biggest aspect that we haven't hit on or something that you're going to be paying attention to for this weekend's game against Tennessee?
We talked about the defense, and I think the pass rush and loading the box is going to be important as well. But I really am looking at safety play here. Like we said, Joe Milton's got a huge arm. He and Milroe, I would not be shocked if he and Milroe are just dropping 60-yard bombs all day long. Be a straight-up heart attack, but it wouldn't shock me. So I think safety play is going to be really big. We saw the safety struggle with letting guys behind them in coverage assignments and things like that against Texas at home. So, just seeing that progression and seeing things like that. Obviously, Caleb Downs, true freshman, has, he's had a lot of games now, or he's had a couple games now under his belt to really learn and develop and things like that.
Chris Walsh, you missed the earlier part, so it's okay if you double up on something. But what are maybe your 1, 2, 3 biggest keys for this game, the storylines for this ball game?
Well, as our outstanding reporters touched on earlier this week, turnovers is going to be huge, obviously. Yeah. And then the other big thing, obviously, is avoiding sacks. With Tennessee's defensive line and the issues that Alabama's been having over and over and over again. I think on paper this game definitely favors the Crimson Tide, but it's just Milroe's got to get comfortable, and he's got to he's got to avoid when he bails, he often bails the same place, and teams are now beginning to scheme for that. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see if Alabama comes out and tries to start pounding the ball right off the bat, or if they're going to wait for a while. But that's in the dynamics of the matchups and so forth. Those are the two things. And so it's cliche, turnovers and pass rush. We talk about it over and over and over again. But in this case, it's definitely that's 1-2 to me.
All right, so I'm really kind of stealing from everybody a little bit, but I'm going to go with Tim Keenan, Justin Aboigbe, and Jaheim Otis as really your biggest, your most important players, because Tennessee last year spreads you out way wide. You've got to be able to stop the run with just your 3 guys, and you have to give Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell a chance to rush the passer, and you do that by really having strong interior play. I think Tim Keenan has been a breath of fresh air for the Alabama defensive line. Jaheim Otis maybe started a little slower, but obviously he was hampered by small injury. I think Justin Aboigbe, his return from last year's neck injury has been so crucial. You saw him SEC co-defensive lineman of the week against A&M, get the safety, force the safety, and get a sack. I think those 3 guys, if they can win their matchups, will put Alabama into such a strong position to win the game. And really, on top of that, if you look at the new version of the 2023 Cheetah package, it is absolutely evil. You've got one of those defensive linemen, whether it be Otis or Aboigbe, gets in there. Sometimes it's Jamarian Latham. You throw out Chris Braswell, Dallas Turner, and Quandarius Robinson as your 3 edge guys. Well, Q will either play on the edge or he'll drop into the middle linebacker. You bring in Deontay Lawson, who's already on the field anyways, but Deontay usually drops into an edge, and they put Caleb Downs as the interior kind of inside linebacker, whole position player. The athleticism that goes into, I know everybody likes Will Anderson and loved what he did for the program, but the combined athleticism of that unit, I think, is much more effective than last year's unit. And so I think you're going to see that a lot. If Alabama can force Tennessee into 3rd and long by playing good on 1st and 2nd down, you slow down the offense, and then you're able to get into your sub package. And that way you can get after Joe Milton and force him into making some bad decisions. Hopefully, ideally, we'll see. So we're at right about 45, and it's time to make some picks. I've got 4 SEC matchups. Obviously, Alabama and Tennessee makes for the 5th, and I've got 3 bonus games on the board with national implications. So we'll do it kind of like we did last week. We'll go right around the board. We'll go Katie, Wyatt, Chris, and then we'll flip around and go Chris, Wyatt, Katie, and we'll start with Mississippi State and Arkansas, the bottom of the barrel in the SEC West. 2 teams that Alabama has already defeated. Katie Wyndham, Mississippi State is on the road at Arkansas. Will the Hogs get their first SEC win at home under Coach Pittman this year?
Yes. I mean, I think this is obviously it's a must win for Arkansas if they want to get to a bowl game this season, which I think ideally coming into the year they would have been playing for a little bit more than that. But the way the schedule's gone this year, it hasn't. So I'm going to say Arkansas wins at home.
Wyatt Fulton.
I think, Arkansas is heavy on my heart here. My wife is an Arkansas fan, so last week was very stressful for me in the stadium. But I do think Arkansas gets their first SEC win at home this week.
If Arkansas loses as Pittman drops to 10-21 in the SEC, which he's a better coach than that. But what makes this one kind of tough is I was really impressed with Mississippi State when Alabama faced it earlier this season. I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with Arkansas. I don't feel good about it, but I'm kind of like with Katie. I'm like, yeah, okay.
I'll make it 4 for 4, going with the hub. I'm more confident than probably the other three. I think Arkansas, Coach Saban convinced me. I thought he was doing a little coach speak last week. They're better than their record. No, he convinced me, and Arkansas convinced me by playing through the second half, really winning the second half 15-3. I think Arkansas gets their first SEC win this weekend. All right, we're going South Carolina at Missouri. Shane Beamer with his broken foot going to the other Columbia. Chris Walsh, how you feel about South Carolina at Missouri?
I like Missouri, big time. They've got it going. If you watch the game with Kentucky, it was kind of interesting because it was all Kentucky. Arkansas does a fake punt, and it worked beautifully. First pass a guy had ever thrown at the collegiate level, and he hits the guy basically in stride. It's homecoming in Missouri. They've got a lot going. 2 weeks from now, they've got Georgia with a bye in between. So yeah, I'm buying that the Tigers are going to pull this off and keep it going.
Wyatt Fulton.
I'm drinking the Missouri Kool-Aid. They've got a really good offense, and I really like what Eli Drinkowitz and Brady Cook have been doing over there. And I just think that they've got a little too much. South Carolina not quite living up to expectations this year.
Yeah, I picked Mizzou last week. I'm gonna stick with them, especially at home against South Carolina.
Trisky.
Real quick, and I don't know. I think we're going to find out a lot about SEC coaches with this game because I don't know if you guys saw it. Shane Beamer said that he broke his foot. He was kicking a Gatorade bottle. Okay, if you're Missouri, how many balls do you throw near where he's standing on the sideline?
He said he's not taking any pain medication because he doesn't want to call a strange call on fourth down and impact the game. I'm going with Missouri as well. I do not. I don't have a whole lot of respect for Coach Beamer as a head coach. I think he's a good little football coach. I think he's got a good football mind, obviously football pedigree. But the broken foot, the way he talks in the media, he just doesn't seem like he has very good emotional control, and that gets into I think that affects the team. I'm going with Missouri as well, and I think Shane Beamer may not be long for the maybe on the future Alabama analyst list here pretty soon.
Let's just hope that he doesn't take his shirt off and wave it around in the air like another coach.
We'll keep it rolling. Number 13, Ole Miss at Auburn. Auburn got their tails whipped last week down in Death Valley. A certain writer in the state of Alabama suggested that Lane Kiffin should be fired if he loses to Auburn this weekend. Katie Wyndham, you're first up. Are you taking the Lane train, or does Hugh Freeze get themselves get what? That'll be their first SEC win. Yeah, they lost to A&M, lost to Georgia, lost to LSU. Will they get their first SEC win?
I don't think so. I don't think the Auburn offense can keep up with the Ole Miss offense. I think it might be a little closer than people think. Someone told me, which I haven't fact-checked this is what I was trying to look up really quick, that Ole Miss has only won at Jordan-Hare like 3 times ever or something like that.
I was looking that up right now, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, they have a 3-17 record at Auburn. So it might be a little closer than people think, but I just don't, because the Auburn crowd will be hyped. They're looking for that first SEC win, but I watched a lot of that Auburn LSU game when I was last Saturday, and this Auburn offense, I don't see how they can keep up with Ole Miss.
They stinky. They're not good.
With
really feel.
Auburn is a freaky environment. First off, I don't know what they've done at Jordan-Hare to make that environment just so tough to play in, but it is difficult. Ole Miss is kind of getting that same voodoo treatment that Alabama gets whenever they go to Jordan-Hare. It's a night game in Jordan-Hare. Auburn's a different animal at night. If they go with Robbie Ashford, I like Auburn's chances. I just don't think they're going to go with Robbie Ashford, so I'm going to take Ole Miss in that offense.
It's kind of a weird answer, but everything with Auburn's weird. So I mean, it's very fitting. So well done. The Hugh Freeze Bowl.
Exactly.
It's going to be. There's going to be some extra on this for that alone. The Auburn crowd I think is going to be interesting on this one, but I just don't see Lane coming up short on this one. Ole Miss has got too much going in its direction, so I'm taking the Lane train. I'm taking Joey Freshwater.
There we go. We're going 4 for 4 with Ole Miss. And another just weird aspect is when Auburn was looking for their new coach, Lane Kiffin was at the very top of their list and had a little flirtation. Is he going to leave Ole Miss? So it's going to be interesting. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. Maybe we'll catch the second half or maybe the fourth quarter after Alabama and Tennessee finishes. I'm going to Ole Miss as well. An easy pick, but just a fun game. Our Army is going to LSU. The only real point I want to make or a question I want to ask is how appropriate do you guys feel that it is that LSU is painting their end zones camouflage in honor of hosting Army? I know it's Army and obviously the service academies, but not very often you see the home team paying homage or paying respect, on the field for the opposition. And just a funny quip, will that make it difficult for either team to find the end zone?
Do you want me to start?
Anybody, because I think everybody's taking LSU.
Yeah, obviously LSU. I don't know. It's funny because anytime teams wear military appreciation jerseys or, Alabama baseball even wore the camo hats for the last, month or two of last season. People always joke about one team respecting the troops more. I guess it's a nice touch. It would make more sense if it was like, Veterans Day weekend or something like that, but I don't have anything wrong with it.
I wish Alabama would schedule the military schools. I really do. I think home and home in the Army and Navy, I think would be wonderful at some point down the line. I've written that before. I maybe some, if I ever, whenever I see our athletic director again, I might mention it, see if and try to gauge his interest. So I love that. LSU was doing this. End zones, sure, why not? It'll be kind of cool. So they did camouflage, like real camouflage in one, and like the LSU colors camouflage style in another. Although that might be too bright. Never mind. Okay.
All right, so let's go to the outside games outside of the SEC before we finish with Alabama and Tennessee. Penn State, number 7 Penn State is going to Ohio State. Both teams undefeated. We'll do Penn State, Ohio State, just so you're ready. Duke at Florida State and Utah at USC. Those will be our 3 outside the box, outside the SEC games. Chris Walsh, we'll start with you. Penn State at Ohio State, big Big Ten matchup.
Huge game. Quick answer on this one. I'm not going with Penn State until I see them actually win a really big game like this. So Ohio State's home. I think right now they're the better team. We'll pull it out with a field goal or something like that.
Yeah, home game for Ohio State. Both these teams are really good defensively. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. has struggled with drops this season. I think he had 3 last week against Purdue. So not quite the offensive output that you're hoping Ohio State would have, but Penn State doesn't win these big games on the road and things like that. They've only beaten Ohio State, I think, once since like 2015. So I'm going Ohio State here.
Yeah, I'm with Chris and Wyatt. It seems like Penn State never step up to the moment in these big games. Admittedly, I don't think I've watched Penn State at all this year. I've watched Ohio State a little bit, but I'm going to go with the Buckeyes at home.
OHIO. We'll go 4 for 4, and Ryan Day can talk about Lou Holtz a little bit more. All right, Duke at Florida State. Will Florida State falter? Florida State looking like if they continue to do what they're doing, they might be one of the 4 in the playoff. Katie Wyndham, will the Duke Blue Devils pull off an upset?
You know what? Why not? Just spiced up. We've been going with the home team a lot so far. The favorites. Duke has a good quarterback. They've shown some good things this season. Had the one tough loss. So, am I super confident in this pick? No, but why not? Just switch it up a little bit. I'll go Duke on the road.
I'll be controversial here. I'm going to take Florida State. Riley Leonard is still dealing with that high ankle sprain he suffered in Duke's first and, as of right now, I believe only loss of the season. He might return, but the biggest thing for him is going to be is how close is he to 100%. And I think even if he's this questionable to play at this point in the week, he's not going to be anywhere near 100% for the game. I'm taking the Seminoles.
I'm taking the Seminoles as well. It's Duke.
We'll leave Katie Wyndham on an island, and I'll take Florida State as well. All right, last outside the box game, Utah, number 14, Utah at USC. Chris Walsh, how are we feeling about that big Pac-12 matchup?
I really, really, really want to pick Utah. This by far to me is the toughest pick of the 3. It's I keep looking for USC's defense. That just kind of tells you where we're at there. I think Utah is always more fundamentally sound. I'm wondering if we're going to see Cam Rising maybe as well. So it'll be kind of interesting. I'm going to pick USC, but I don't feel good about it at all. I would definitely take the points of this if I was a betting person.
This is where I'll differ from Chris. I'm going to take Utah. Utah's a really physical team, especially for the Pac-12. And as we saw last week, as we saw against Utah twice last year, a Lincoln Riley team gets punched in the mouth and they don't know how to respond. I think Utah's going to do that again, and it'll be tight, but I do think Utah pulls it.
I'm kind of like Chris. I've been looking for USC's defense, but Utah's offense has been bad so far this year. I just looked at their scoring output, and I don't know if they've scored more than 20, or out of the 20s range once. But if Cam Rising comes back, that'll help. I think I'm going to go with USC though at home.
All right, we'll make it nice and split. I'll take Utah. I'll take Utah to kind of pull off the upset and leave USC 2 losses in a row. All right, so we're at the business end. Number 11, Alabama is hosting number 17, Tennessee. Alabama, 9.5-point favorite. We'll treat Chris Walsh like the Kirk Herbstreit. No picks for Chris Walsh, but give us your final analysis on Alabama, Tennessee as we wrap up this Football Friday.
I think the revenge factor is definitely going to be in play here. I think Alabama's going to be geared up for it. And we're going to get some more shove the ball down their throats offense if they can pull it off. So I think Alabama fans are looking for a little payback, and they got a little bit of a reminder that college football isn't quite as easy as they kind of anticipate. Great atmosphere. Should be a lot of fun.
Wyatt Fulton, last comments and your pick, Alabama and Tennessee.
Last comments. This is really just going to come down to the trenches, and we say that just about every week. But really and truly, the trench play is where this is going to be make or break. I've got Alabama winning. I'm going to say 28-21.
We like that. Katie Wyndham, you'll be in Bryant-Denny Stadium in the press box right there for BamaCentral.com, leading all of our coverage. How are we feeling about the third Saturday in October?
I think Alabama's going to win. I don't know. I'm not going to pick them to cover this week because I feel like when I've done that, I've been wrong. So, which means they probably will cover. But yeah, I'm with Wyatt. I think it'll probably be in that 7-point range. I feel like 9.5 is a little high. But then again, like we talked about earlier, if Alabama is able to force Joe Milton into some mistakes and turnovers, I think they do cover. But I'm going to go with Alabama wins, but doesn't cover.
Oh, gosh, I've been thinking about it all week long. I guess I'm down to nailing down the pick. I'm going with Alabama as well. So we'll go 3 for 3, taking the Tide to win. I think the revenge factor, as Chris alluded to, is going to be too large. And I think that, you'll get just one more mistake out of Joe Milton than you will out of Jalen Milroe. Maybe Milroe takes more sacks, but Milton turns the ball over more. I think that's going to be kind of like which mistake is more deadly, taking sacks or turning the ball over. If you can let James Burnett punt the ball away to Tennessee rather than Jalen Milroe throw the ball to Tennessee and set them up on the 10-yard line like he did against Texas, I think that's a better odds for you. All right, I'm going to the Alabama's going to cover. I think Alabama's going to cover. I'm going 31. I'm going 31-20. 31-20. I think you're going to get a couple bombs over the top, and you get the cover on the last drive or two. I think it's going to be close all the way throughout. It's going to be a lot of fun on Saturday. Alabama covers. Alabama wins. You go into a bye week. We're going to have a lot of fun on the bye week at BamaCentral.com, talking about a lot of interesting things, probably highlighting some basketball a little bit more as we're, 18 days away from basketball season getting rolling away for women's and men's. We were up in Birmingham for both days talking to or hearing from Nate Oates and talking to Christy Curry. If you missed any of those episodes, you can check them out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, right there at Bama Central's YouTube channel, or subscribe, rate, and review us at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon on your favorite podcast platforms. You can check out all those interviews. Big thanks to Greg Sankey and Coach Wimp Sanderson joining us just a little bit. Greg Sankey was a little reluctant, but he gave me some of his time. It was great. I really appreciate that so much. You're going to be able to follow Katie Wyndham, Austin Hannon. Who else? Blake Byler, Edwin Stanton. You got 5, right? So is it Matthew jumping in the press box or someone else? Will Miller.
Will Miller.
Oh, my man, Will Miller. You'll be able to follow everybody over at Bama Central right there in the press box. We'll have live updates right there at BamaCentral.com, and we'll have all kinds of coverage pre and post. We'll let you know what Malachi Moore, Tresman Marshall, and everybody else who's kind of banged up, what their status is early in the day. You can check it out at live updates. And then, of course, you can follow us after the game. We'll be in the room with Nick Saban. We'll be in the room with Josh Heupel. Win or lose for either side. We'll cover it very, very well at BamaCentral.com and set you up for the bye week next week. Everybody gets a little bit of a breather. Coach Saban said he's going to the lake on Thursday night next week. Going to the lake Thursday night, going to be watching film from Thursday night, celebrating his birthday. Last thing, real quick, what would you get Coach Saban for his birthday, Katie Wyndham, if you could get him anything?
I don't know. I can't even ever figure out what to get my dad for his birthday because he already gets whatever he wants for himself. And I feel like Saban's the same way. I mean, heck, he was talking to McAfee yesterday about trading Ferraris. So I don't think I have anything in my budget for
Well, Coach Saban's birthday is next week, and we'll have to see what we all get him from the beat next week for his birthday. We'll check him out. Still on Monday, he'll be up in Birmingham, I believe. So Austin Hannon will be up there for that little bit, and it'll be a lot of fun to cover him on the bye week. We'll get out of here for the day. Make sure you follow us at Bama Central on Twitter /X, at Bama Central SI on Instagram, at Alabama Crimson and Tide on Sports Illustrated on Facebook. You can follow Katie Wyndham at Katie Wyndham _ at Wyatt Fulton at Fulton W _ for him on the X machine, at Writing Walsh for Chris Walsh as well. I am at Joe Gaither 6. This has been another edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. We'll keep it rolling next week. It's a bye week, but we will still have a full week right here at Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.